under our first module, again, which is called creating a high performance, which is what you do first in corporate, right? You build your team, right? I don't know how many of y'all have been at this level or not, but if you have, feel free to speak up because I'll share my experiences so this will make sense. But I also need you to share your experiences if you've been down this route before, running a project. Within creating a high performing team with the course content, the first thing you do is build your team. That makes sense, right? It didn't used to say that with the old exam. The next thing you want to do is define team rules, because once you get a group of people together, you need some rules in place. If you're autocratic and working by yourself, that's easy. But just because you think you're cool, everybody else doesn't. So there has to be team ground rules amongst 15, 20 people. Then you want to negotiate project agreements. Well, what type of agreements? We'll get to that in a second. You as a servant leader and as a transformational leader that's over that project, you want to empower your team and the stakeholders along with it. We'll talk about the distinction between those. And there's not, well, then you want to train your team members and your stakeholders, you meaning you, the project manager. Then you want to engage and support virtual teams, which we've already done now because of COVID, right? And then your job is to also build a shared understanding about whatever project that you're governing or being a servant leader to, right? So this is our module, and these are the topics under that module. There's 7 of them. Okay, our next topic is train team. We only got 2 more topics after this. So we'll probably do this topic and do a round of quiz. So you'll have a look at, now we're going to do a lot of quizzes tomorrow, but it's team quizzes and it's all verbal. I'm not going to go off nowhere in some back room or what do they call it? Side room. We're going to do this right here as a team or as a class. We'll do this and then we'll do 1 or 2 rounds of questions on the exam simulator so you can start to understand and take a look at how they're going to be coming at you on the exam. Okay, again, this is our 5th topic under creating and building a high performance team. So this is another key objective. We've empowered, well, our objective was to empower our team members and stakeholders. Now we need to train them up on some things, right? And it's going to work vice versa. So here are some of the tools on the right side, and here's some of the outcomes that need to come out of training our team members and stakeholders. So some of the tools are training gap analysis. That's pretty easy to do, right? You can tell when somebody's good at something or not, or they'll tell you themselves. Then the actual training itself, now it can come internal. It doesn't have to be formal training. It can come in the form of pairing and mentoring. In other words, putting a junior programmer with a senior programmer. That's one way of training. Right? We do that a lot in corporate. And using those tools to produce what? Training them into a plan, cost estimates. Again, we just talked about cost and time, producing a training calendar, a training assessment, and what you're getting now, actual certification, right? That's an option. Okay. So a training and coaching plan, that's done so that you can enable performance of your team individually and collectively, right? And we're going to do that through training analysis. Now, 2 differences, 2 disparities that you're going to need to know for the exam. We already know this as individuals, but from a PMI perspective, training, this provides specialized skill building for individuals and the team. That's training. Coaching, on the other hand, is a long-term relationship between individuals. This is going to be on the exam, the difference between these, okay? Coaching is a long-term relationship between individuals, which aims to transfer skill sets and knowledge from the more experienced party to the less experienced. That's coaching, right? Coaching and training plan could include some of the guidelines as to when, right? Timing is important, right? Skill and training for deliverable that you're producing for end users, right, should happen close to the time of delivery. Right? In other words, if we're producing, I don't know, some kind of internal app for our accounting department, well, when it's close to delivery, you probably want to start training. Not in the beginning. Which type of training? Is it going to be coaching? Is it going to be formal training? What type of activities along with that, right? formalized or through certification, which is what you're doing now, right? That's a type of training, formal training. Scope has a lot to do with it, right? When it comes to technical and practical skills, you want to look at soft skills, direct knowledge transfer. One thing that you're going to come across in traditional training, well, not traditional training, but in traditional teams, I'm going to use IT for an example. Some of the projects I've worked on, I can name the positions that was, on those teams. Always needed developers. Always needed an enterprise architect. Always needed an information architect, depending on what type of, these information architect normally ones that do the wireframes for web pages. Always needed a sysadmin. Always needed at least 1 or 2 database administrators. All right. Also needed particular application engineers. In other words, companies that are comprised of different applications. Well, there's people that specialize in those applications. So that could be a team of 10, 15 people. Then you have cross-functional teams, which are end users from different departments. I mean, literally end users. They're also in operations, but they're end users, right? Well, those 3 to 9 player teams that are in adaptive, they want them to have T-shaped skills. In other words, a broad comprehension, a team of 9 there should be 2 or 3 people on there that could be database administration. There should be 2 or 3 people on that that can also do testing, quality assurance testing, as well as developing. So it's called T-shaped with agile or adaptive teams, where it's called I-shaped, meaning you got a database administrator, you got a sysadmin, you got a developer, you have an information technologist, you have an enterprise technologist. It's called I-shaped on the traditional side. That will be on the exam. So in the adaptive or agile, you want your teams to have a breadth of knowledge. Why? So the teams can stay small. With traditional, you want your teams to have a depth of knowledge. I mean, a programmer is just a programmer, can't do anything else. A sysadmin is just a sysadmin. They can't do anything else. They don't even know how to do anything else. Where it's the opposite on agile. So that's another difference that you're going to need to know for the exam. Within that confines, you're going to have required competencies, of course, right? In order to, we're going to have to do gap analysis with your team, and especially for individuals, right? So you can actually, okay, where are they now? Where we need them to be, right? And that gap analysis, okay, either again, mentoring and coaching can fill that, or somebody might have to go out and actually do specialized training. I don't know about the teams you've worked on. It's rare that you get to have money to go and do specialized training, for me anyway. Right. Okay, some of the elements of training, which we're all facing now, what used to be instructor-led classrooms, you don't see a lot of that anymore. You see more virtual. There's also self-paced e-learning classes out there. Another way of learning is document reviews. Some of those company assets that you have, within every company, everything that's been documented, that stuff that's training. Somebody actually put some work into that to get something else done, but you can use that as training as well. You have interactive simulation. It's a little bit more expensive. Then you have on-the-job training, which we all do, right? We all do that all the time, right? So these are just different delivery models for training. Nothing special about that you need to know for the exam. Just know they exist, which is what we just talked about here, right? Training cost and scheduling, pretty self-explanatory, right? There's nothing new here that we all haven't seen before. Nothing that I need to point out in terms of testing. And when I say testing, meaning your certification testing. Parenting coaching, we already covered that. It also covers mentoring and coaching. Pairing, pairing a junior level person with a senior level person. That's a form of training. Certs, which is what you're doing now. And there's more than just PMI certifications. You got ISO certifications, Six Sigma. They have various belts, green belt, black belt. I think there's yellow belt. I got my green belt maybe 15, 16 years ago, way out of date. I'm not having bothered about trying to get it updated. Right? Anybody else working on the other in your MBA, which is not a certification? That's anybody else working on any other type of certification or plan on it?
I mentioned the Scrum certification that I wanted to get eventually.
Yeah.
No, I'm done after this.
Okay. And if anybody else has Scrum on their list, Scrum is like a 2-day training.
Yeah.
And you take your test maybe an hour after you finish training. And it's passable. I did it. I mean, it's not that, you know, and it's a good one to have too. But it really
I'm waiting for an organization to pay for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Guidelines. Well, hold on 1 second. Nah. Baseline post training assessment. I've never done one of those. In other words, when somebody get back from training, you have some kind of assessment. Normal assessment is done. Can they do their job better? To me, that's the assessment, right? But that does exist in a formal environment. So when you sit for the exam, there's such a thing as baseline and post-training assessment. In other words, before they went to training, how good were they? When they got back, how adept are they? Okay, here's some guidelines. Just kind of give those a once over.